the introduction to the God in Everybody book, Talks and Essays on God Realization by Darfri John, aka Adidar Samaraj. If there is a single word that characterizes our present-day civilization, it is doubt. For our whole way of life and thinking about the world and about ourselves is influenced, even governed, by the ideology of scientism. And scientism is based on the scientific method of doubt, blown out of all proportions. It calls everything into question, particularly whatever cannot be reduced to visible, or at least measurable, hard facts. Its ruling maxim is seeing is believing. Scientism is the religion of scientific materialism. Ever since the advent of the new scientific spirit in the 17th century, scientists have been at loggerheads with the church and religion in general. As scientism grew in power and influence, it became increasingly hostile toward and more openly critical of religion and metaphysics. Theology, which has been the queen of sciences throughout the Middle Ages, was swiftly dethroned. Then, toward the end of the 19th century, Nietzsche boldly proclaimed the death of God. Man himself was deified. Mankind had ceased to marvel at and be awe-inspired by the mystery of the universe within and without. Instead, scientists and then also laymen began to put their faith in the progress of science, which one day would provide a rational answer to all man's questions. True, science has answered a great many questions, but it has also raised a good many new ones. The original hope of unlimited progress has been shattered. Instead of leading humanity into a golden age of plenty, science and technology have given rise to all kinds of social problems and perils that today threaten the human race with extinction. The world's religions have failed to provide an antidote to the poison of scientific materialism. It has succeeded in paralyzing the minds and numbing the hearts of the majority of men and women alive today. Most people nowadays, if they are not self-declared atheists or agnostics, have no more than a lukewarm interest in spiritual life. How many merely pay lip service to the religion of their birth? How many are either apologetic about the belief in God or ostentatious about it because it profits them? There are very few people who do not merely believe in the existence of God, but actually live on the basis of heartfelt faith or intuition of the divine. Having ousted religion, scientific materialism has failed to bring mankind equanimity, contentment, fulfillment, or happiness. There is a widespread discontent and disillusionment in life, which drives some to a restless search for ever new experiences and adventures, others to the couches of psychoanalysts or to mental asylums, and yet others to quiet despair, alcoholism, or suicide. In the last analysis, man's present disorientation and experience of meaninglessness are a direct result of his having been torn out of the protective environment of traditional religion. So long as there was only one belief system, one church, each man knew his place in the universe. He was not confused by competing values and beliefs. He may at times have querulously argued with his Creator for what he felt was an unjust lot, but he would never have doubted God's existence. Then, when he was taught that God was fashioned in man's own image, rather than man in the image of God, he lost his childlike, naive faith. Thus, humanity was forced out of its childhood, facing the challenge of growing into maturity. Although scientism would have us believe that man has at last come of age, the truth is that, for the most part, he has barely passed through the rebellious years of adolescence. In its origins and orientation, scientism itself is a form of adolescent protest, combined with man's search for an identity in the face of the global changes initiated by science and technology. Where people do not simply fall back into the disposition of childish dependency in the form of religious provincialism, they espouse an adolescent, skeptical point of view. Few bypass these two pseudo-solutions. In other words, many people either revert to blind faith, to the unexamined belief in the paternalistic creator deity, or they adopt equally blindly the positivistic belief that God is an unprovable and hence non-existent entity. According to this view, God is merely a meaningless concept, a phantasm of human language. And yet, belief in God and talk about God has proven extraordinarily resilient, despite the onslaught of materialist philosophy over 2 centuries. Indeed, religion is at present experiencing a remarkable comeback. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism and Buddhism, as well as other minor traditions, find themselves in the middle of a renaissance. However, this religious revival is in many cases only a regeneration of the heresy of religious provincialism, that is, the dogmatism of religious half-truths, sectarian and cultic fanaticism. What has happened to authentic religion or spirituality? What has happened to the realization of the living God, the great testimony of the adepts? What is current today is merely the abstract idea of God or the belief in a parental God who hears one's prayers, or the drug-induced experience of God. But these encounters with God are all products of the striving ego. They are encounters with the God whose death was declared a century ago. The living God, however, cannot be thought, emoted, or experienced. The divine reality cannot be affirmed or denied. It can only be realized. This is the great truth that has been kept alive in the high esoteric traditions. It has never been a part of exoteric or popular religion, which demands adherence rather than general self-sacrifice. For to realize the living God presupposes utter self-transcendence, perfect surrender of the ego. This is the glorious teaching of all the God-realized adepts of mankind. It is also the evangel of Master Geoffrey John. His whole life of self-transcending surrender is a demonstration of the truth that the God beyond all thought and experience is not dead. In his words, God is the truth of nature, not merely the creator of nature. This is affirmed by all the great adepts, and I likewise affirm it on the basis of realization, not hearsay. There is no higher world to which we should aspire. Our aspiration should be toward the present God, toward a state of perfect identification with the living God. This disposition does not aspire toward transitions to other worlds or a temporary transition out of this world and a return to it. The perfect fulfillment of this way is demonstrated through translation, or the complete dissolution of the habit energies of attention that lead toward conditional embodiment and experiencing. It is not by aspiring to go elsewhere that we enter into the divine domain, but by entering directly into the living divine, always presently, right now. This slim volume presents a selection of Master Geoffrey John's talks and essays in which he speaks of modern man's failure to move beyond mere doubt, complacency, and conventional religiosity, and of man's prior enlightenment or happiness. Master Da has been considering these matters of the great way of truth with devotees for many years, always finding new ways of expressing the obvious. These talks and essays are by no means mere intellectual exercises generated for the edification or mental stimulation of others. Rather, their sole purpose is to awaken others to the direct intuition of the divine reality. If God is indeed alive, what will you do? 1983. The Editors.